How you doing?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a Saturday morning and the weather's nice. It certainly beats probably back where you are. It's 4 degrees, I think, here.
I don't even know. It's cold.
Actually, it's 7 degrees here.
7 degrees there?
Yeah, where you are, it's showing -8.
I can tell you this. On Monday morning when I woke up, it was -26, okay? And I don't know what the wind chill was, but it was minus a lot more than that. It was cold. Very cold.
There's been a debate recently about wind chill, and that wind chill is just sort of a bunch of BS.
I can tell you that I was shoveling my driveway on Sunday night, and there were periods of wind. And when it was windier, it was an awful lot colder. So I think those people are trying to stir up some nonsense.
Yeah, I caught the gist of it in a news flash. I've got one of those Amazon Alexa things, and I can ask for a news briefing. And one of the main stories, it comes from the CBC, was about wind chill being. There's a debate about it being misleading or not really a real number. And I look it up here, it just says wind chill is a mathematically derived number designed to let us know what the outdoor temperature feels like to our human skin, not how it affects the mercury in a thermometer. Some want to do away with it, arguing that a limited formula can't accurately predict how the weather will feel to everyone in their own unique environment. Those who support it say that even with its flaws, the wind chill still gives folks a better idea of what to expect before they go outside. For those with strong opinions on the matter, the debate rages on.
Yeah, okay, rages on, yeah. Who is raging about this? Yeah, there's like a bunch of men in a room shouting at each other. No, you're wrong.
I told you the wind chill was... Don't you ever take my wind chill away from me.
Yeah. So stupid. Unbelievable. I can tell you, I know for a fact, when you're standing in the cold and it's windy, it's colder than when it's not windy.
Yes.
End of story.
Yes.
It's the same as true when it's a sunny day. I mean, the wind cools it down. It is. So I understand what they're saying. They're saying like the temperature, they're assigning like a temperature to it. It's -26, but with the wind chill, it's -36. Okay, fine. Do away with that. Just say it's -26 with the wind, it's bleeping cold. Right?
Yeah.
It's colder, a lot colder.
But I think you got to do what works. And to me, wind chill, if someone says it's -15 on the thermometer, but with the wind chill it's -30, I understand what that means and I can relate to it. So leave me alone. Give me that number.
To me, it just means it's colder.
Yeah, than we think.
Especially,
well, it's not colder.
What? Oh, right.
It's not.
Yeah. Okay, whatever. Well, I'm gonna let the experts debate that. In the meantime, I'm gonna bundle up.
Let the experts rage on.
Rage on, yes. All right, what are we talking about today?
Okay, well, voices in our head. You want to do that one?
Yeah. All right, voices in our head. Actually, it was a good week for that because I had some experiences at work this week, and you and I have both discussed this. How I think as human beings, I wouldn't say most, but many, let's say, is it fair to say most or just many? Many people, maybe most, hovering on most, have this internal sort of dialogue going on with themselves, which is kind of a barometer or measuring stick of saying, did this work out for me? Do I need to change? There's always this constant reevaluation of what you just said, how you just acted in any given or a different situation. So that, the next time you can sort of approach a similar situation with some of the lessons that you learned, and then you can kind of do better, right? So that inner dialogue is always taking place, I think, for most people, let's say.
Yeah.
But you and I think we've talked about this with when it comes to work and having like a boss or a superior. And you and I think, are both in or have both been in a position of leadership where we have subordinates and they report to us. And I think you and I have that conscientiousness, like where we're sort of concerned for the other person, and when we have to sort of say to that person, hey, I need you to perform at a little bit higher level, we kind of take that into that meeting and we say, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, right? But we definitely want to get the best out of them. Whereas there are certain people, and you and I have both had bosses where they come in, it's like 6 guns ablazing, right? And it's difficult to work for somebody like that. And then because you and I are so, I don't want to call it analytical, but we do analyze a little bit the things that come out of our mouth, the things that people say to us. I would say we're quote unquote sensitive, but not like crybaby sensitive, right? So
yeah, we're feeling, we're sensitive, we're feelers, we're feelers.
We evaluate.
I think we feel, and it's certainly a type of personality. When you do some of these personality tests, there's Myers-Briggs, and there's a bunch of these tests that DISC, I think, is one. They measure different things and how you're supposed to interact. And there's definitely a feeler category for personality, and feelers are a very important part of a team. Like, so I think it's good, though. You don't want to have if a team of five feelers is probably not going to get a team to move the ball forward, but like 1 or 2 feelers, and then the different types of others, whatever the opposite to a feeler is, one that looks more black and white at things and doesn't feel first. They just they're very logical thinkers, right. Or they're and I think you can be logical and a feeler at the same time, but they don't shoot from the hip necessarily. They think it through. And one of the things that has sort of struck me is, over the years, I've been in jobs where I'm told, well, you need to be less like that. You need to push harder, or you need to stop thinking. Have
you spoken with a boss and said, oh, by the way, this felt to me that, you were angry with me, or that you didn't think I was competent, and that's the response that you got? You need to change? Feeling that way?
I've had conversations more on a casual basis with a boss, or in a group environment where it's the different types of personalities. I mean, I did have one boss who was one of my favorites, who said to me that...
You've spoken about him before.
He came to me once with some feedback to say that one of his peers, so kind of someone who reported to him, actually not really his peer, but a senior person in the organization, had given him some feedback about me, and that they had gone... I had traveled with this individual and done some meetings, and the feedback that he gave to my boss about those meetings was that, he needs to push more. He needs to pull more out of people in meetings, like with the clients, like get more information.
Speaking of you,
push harder. Yes. Okay. Yes. And he, in the terms of how he gave me the feedback, it started off with the sandwich. I think it starts positive, and then they give you the negative feedback, and then they end on the positive.
We talked about this last couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring that up in a minute, by the way.
Okay. So, but the feedback was, you need to push a bit more, and I've done another. It's called the Leadership Versatility Index test, LVI, where it actually, it's like a circle, and it has different areas of stuff in the circle, and what the test gets to is that it shows where you are in certain areas. If you're a high pusher, or if you're someone that sort of sits back, it shows sort of. I wish I had a visual, but
I actually know what you're talking about. I've done that test too.
Okay, so the premise of the test says that nobody should be too far in either direction. Like, you don't want to have a pusher that's like a 10.
Like 100% pusher, yeah.
You want to have a balance through the wheel. So in some areas it's going to be 6 or 7. Some areas it's going to be -2, -3. So it'll just show you. But the idea is that you have to be able to change in certain situations, and it shows you what your dependency is. And this all comes from feedback. It's like it's a 360 feedback. So the scoring that comes. I can't remember I think you do your own evaluation in it, and then you get a 360, like what you feel about yourself and then what others think about you.
Yes.
And so it's a really interesting analysis. I'd always been kind of fighting against it, thinking I've got to change because people say I need to do this. And rather than embracing it as a strength, not a weakness. And the more evidence I see, I think we all do have to adapt in certain circumstances, but the more evidence I see is that you are better off being authentic and not trying to turn into something that people think you should be, or something you think you should be based on a test or the job you're in.
Right. Yeah.
Some jobs will require different things, and I'm in sales, so people will say, well, hey, you can't be a shrinking violet if you're in sales, but
right.
You also, there are good and bad salespeople who, some are shrinking violets that are crappy because they just don't want to talk to anybody, they're scared, but also that personality can also lend itself well to sales because nobody likes the in-your-face sales guy either. So,
no, yep.
Yeah.
That's true. So the reason why,
but the voice, yeah. So back to the voice.
The voice that's in your head. Like you and I have both had the experience where you have been in a meeting with a boss, or say, for instance, doing a performance review. And I do performance reviews for a few of the people that are under me, but I also have one that's done to me or for me, right, by my boss. And this year there was some concern for me because I thought, well, I moved to a new job about 1.5 years ago, and it's a demanding job, very demanding, very high stress, but it's also got its rewards as well. So it's got its peaks and it's got its valleys. And there were some points this year where I did admittedly struggle. I had some conversations with my bosses about those struggles before my performance review. And they were just basically saying, look, this is where we need you to be, and this is where you are, and we have faith in you, but you need to get there, and we're going to give you all the support you need, which is great, and keep doing what you're doing, because there's lots of good things that you're doing. We're not trying to like slam you down, but this is where, this is our expectation, and you're just a little bit below that right now. So keep working hard. Here's your support, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's good. In theory, it's fantastic to encourage somebody that way and try to bring them to where they need to be. But when I hear that, I don't always interpret that as a good thing, right? So my brain doesn't work that way. My brain works like it almost picks up on all of the negative and almost filters out any of the positive. And I have to process this over a period of time. And it takes me probably about 2 or 3 days to process information like that. And it's even worse when it's something like if I get into a dispute with not somebody at my work, but somebody like if I'm negotiating something and there's a dispute with negotiations. You and I've talked about how, somebody sends a snotty email and you're like, oh my gosh, you just want to respond right away and like tear them apart, right? But you can't. You have to. And I have often done this where I will write one and then leave it and not put an address in it. It's almost like to vent, but I'll get back to that in a second. So going back to the processing of information coming from a boss, there's a lot of I am sensitive, and so I will take that information and it will beat me up. And you have shared this experience, right? And so you've got the voices in your head that will say, are you capable of doing this job? Are you, do they not like me anymore? Does anybody else not like me? So you start asking a whole bunch of questions, which are probably unnecessary and ridiculous. And I'd be very interested to know how many people feel this way and how many people cope with it. I mean, how do they cope with it? Do they hear that and then go, that's not really the voice I need to listen to, and then they just dismiss it and they carry on? Or do they carry it like you and I do, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes. And then again, I want to go back to the point where, because I feel that way, I try to do that whole sandwich thing. And when people do it on me, like when I had and by the way, remind me to talk to you about my performance review, which was actually not so bad in the end. But I try to do that sandwich thing. So when people do it to me, I'm like, you're doing what I do. And it's I do it on purpose. It's because I like to build people up, point out where they need to improve, and then say, but you're really doing good. Like, don't take this all as bad. Everybody needs to improve, including me. And I will admit that. I'll readily stand up and say, I know I can improve. I can be better in every area. So no, and first of all, it's not abnormal to be this way. Originally, I thought that the reasoning behind it had something to do with survival in the wild, like going back to humans. What was that? It was Hey Siri, some Siri thing.
I'm not sure I understand.
Is that your watch?
Yeah.
Because you said serious, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, Sirius brought Siri to the forefront.
Yeah. Keep going. This is good.
So originally I thought negative voices were as a result of human instinct in terms of like survival.
Protection.
You go,
right.
Yeah, you go out into the wilderness hunting for your food, but you always have to be worried about that saber-toothed tiger.
Right, looking over your shoulder. Yeah.
And then that's where it comes from. Now, I did look up. There's a particular article I found. It's titled "When the Voice Inside Your Head Turns Bad." It's by this woman, Melanie Greenberg. She's the website. We'll share it later. Psychologytoday.com.
Interesting.
I wanted to find out where do the voices. So she has a little section here. Where do these voices come from? So psychologists believe these voices are residues of childhood experiences.
I would totally agree. Yes.
Automatic patterns of neural firing stored in our brains and disassociated from the memory of the events they are trying to protect us from. While having fear-based, self-protective, and self-disciplining rules probably made sense and helped us to survive when we were helpless kids at the mercy of our parents, they may no longer be appropriate to our lives as adults. As adults, we have more ability to walk away from the unhealthy situations and make conscious choices about our lives and relationships based on our own feelings, needs, interests, etc. So,
brilliant. Yeah.
When I Google this, I mean, these are some of the things that come up. Don't silence the negative voices in your head. Leverage it. 5 ways to quiet the negative voices in your head.
I'm sure it's all over the map. Yeah.
8 surprisingly effective hacks for getting that negative voice out of your head. How to stop listening to the negative voice. Stop negative voice. And somewhere in here it said, don't try to stop it. I mean, it's like,
yeah, I know, it's all over.
Of,
yeah. I actually did read a book on this years ago, and one of the things, and it did help a lot, actually. Okay. Actually, there's 2 books that I read that I thought were really great, and I'm a bit of a worrier. So there's a book called How to Stop Worrying and Get On With Your Life.
Get On With Life. Yeah. Yes, I've heard of it.
It's by Dale Carnegie. I can't remember the exact title of the book, but it's old. It's written kind of in an old way, so it doesn't have the same language that you and I would talk in today. But the stories are relevant in the sense that even though they're old stories, if you kind of extrapolate what is trying to be communicated, you can pull that stuff. Yeah. There you go. And Start Living. That's the one. Yeah. How to Stop Worrying and Start. So I read that book, and there's another one, and I can't remember the name of the title, but it talked about the voices in your head. And it says, when those negative voices hit, let them play. Let them play. Because it is part of that self-defense mechanism that, if you want to debate whether or not it's an ancient thing that started from a million years ago or whatever it was. But the point is, let the voices play and then basically say, all right, I get it. It's just there. Those are voices that are trying to sort of play out the negative side. They've got their point. They've got their place. But I'm going to evaluate the situation for what it is, and I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to pay attention. I mean, I'm going to allow them to play, but I'm not going to listen to the voice in the sense that I'm not going to take its advice, right? So, I don't know if that book was helpful or not, but I understood the point. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, though, was actually quite good. Anyway, just to cap it off, my performance review had come up, and I was really fretting about it. There were some areas that I did great in this year, and then there were some areas that, quite frankly, I did struggle in. And I don't think any company anywhere looks at the whole individual and says, this guy is a 10 all the way across the board. I think everybody has an area or two, or maybe three, that they can improve in. And I don't think anybody cares about that as long as you are improving or you're excelling in the areas that you can excel in, and in the areas that you're weaker in, maybe someone else on your team can pick up as you begin to develop that skill. Like, nobody's going to be perfect at everything. So anyway, my point is, when I was walking into my performance review, I was extremely anxious, and I thought, they're going to harp on the negative, because this is the way my brain works, right? They don't. My brain doesn't think, they're going to totally sandwich this and put some of the good things as well.
Right.
And I was very worried about the negative points, and I went in, and by the way, this is like one of those self-evaluated performance reviews where you give a mark and then your superior also gives a mark, and you make some comments and then they make some comments, right? So I went in.
This is that, or this isn't that?
This is, yeah. This is, yeah. So I kind of tried to be as accurate as I possibly could in my performance review.
Like your self-assessment?
Yeah, my self-assessment part. And in the end, my boss actually bumped up a bunch of my own assessment marks and said, you know what, I actually think you did a lot better here. And there were some great. Overall, the performance review was actually quite positive. There was very little negative that was spoken of. I walked out of that thinking, that was great. I felt encouraged. I felt strong. I felt motivated. I felt empowered. And that's
great.
Which is good, because honestly, a boss should do that. Someone who is above you should help you feel, when you come out of a meeting like that you are empowered and you can continue to improve and do well. And it was great.
Rare.
Very rare,
though. That's the problem. And that, I would say, if we were to put our list of 5 characteristics of a great boss, or put that would be on the list for sure, that empowerment versus, making you feel negative. So how to empower someone. A boss that can empower you to do your best work is got to be like number one as far as a good characteristic for a great boss.
Yes, and I have a great boss. I don't always agree with, I have a few bosses, so I don't always agree with them. I don't always believe that they're making the right choices, but as far as leadership goes, they do well. So I'm happy. Yeah. I'm okay. Lewis Black says in one of his comedy bits, if you are so staunchly Democrat or Republican, if you are so far on one side, then that person would scare the crap out of me.
Can you repeat that again?
He basically said that if you are so staunchly a liberal or a conservative, right? If you're one, like only ever just one side or the other, that that person would scare the crap out of him, because it's true. Like, you and I have had this political discussion before. Nobody is 100% liberal or 100% conservative. You're mostly one side, but you bleed into the other as well. Anyway.
But some people don't allow that. They will refuse ever to see the other side of something. So I wonder how many conversations took place over the holidays that were based on politics, especially the recent stuff that's going on, the government shutdown and Donald Trump. And I wonder how many thousands, if not millions, of conversations have occurred over the Christmas holidays where politics have resulted in family members getting into arguments.
And then not like speaking to each other like ever
Somebody
again.
storming out of a room.
Screw this, I'm out of here. Yeah.
In our own family or friends, circle of friends, there were 3 of them that occurred. One was with my parents. The other one was a friend who they were visiting a relative, and this friend got right into like Donald Trump, and they went toe to toe to the point where one of the people ended up in the bathroom crying over it.
Is this a mutual friend of ours that was involved in this?
Yes.
He has very strong views, but yes, go ahead.
Well, then, actually, the other example is probably the guy you're thinking of. It was a heated debate about fake news and about immigration, and it ended up being one person was doing a really good job of just being quiet, not really responding to all this sort of attacking almost that was going on, like, in your country, this is how it is, and this is how it was, and it was one of those things where the person did everything in their power not to engage and did a really good job. Did a few comments, but did a really good job. But then the spouse of this person had like a heated exchange the next morning saying, don't speak to my wife like that. Like, that's totally inappropriate. And then he himself got into an argument about some of the issues. And it was and it just made me think, how many of these types of conversations went on over the holidays?
Yeah, for
millions.
sure. Yeah.
It had to be.
Yeah. Very polarizing topic for sure. Did you know, apparently, that Costco now sells a 27-pound tub of macaroni and cheese? It's
pre-made, like?
I don't know.
Like, what is it? What do you mean? Like that? Like it's like a craft dinner in a box, but this is a tub and you mix it up, or is it like ready-made tub?
No, it's not ready. No, it's not ready-made. It's like it's supposed to last like 20 years. It's 20 years of macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine 27 pounds of macaroni? I mean, macaroni's pretty light. You think about how much is in a box of mac and cheese from Kraft
But is
Dinner.
it mac and cheese or is it just the noodles?
No, it's mac and cheese. Yeah.
Okay.
So
right.
I don't know if it comes.
And how much does it cost?
I'm going to look that up right now, actually. I'm going to see if it has a price. Here it is. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
27 pounds? 27 pounds?
27 pounds. It's $89.99, and you get. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. You get 180 servings of Chef's Banquet macaroni and cheese, which
sounds delightful.
It's very tasty sounding. The company says it will remain edible for up to 20 years. So I guess that doesn't mean it will. Like you won't. There's not enough to last 20 years. It's just that it will last 20 years.
Don't some alarm bells go off when you hear statements like that?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, does pasta go bad? I guess it. I mean, I know it does if it's cooked, but if it's got a lid on it and it's protected from the air, I don't know.
But this isn't just the pasta. This is the cheese too. Which
That's
I assume
true.
Is some sort of a powder.
It's
that's
powdered,
been processed inside out and backwards and
heavily chemicaled. Yeah. You should see the video with it. It actually looks pretty tasty. It's probably not the same mac and cheese, so they probably picked like this gourmet mac and cheese. But anyway, yeah. So I thought that was something that I wanted to bring up because I wasn't sure if it was true or not, and there's too much valuable information in there that tells me that it is true.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a sad day that I just found out that there's a 27-pound tub of macaroni and cheese.
I won't be buying it. And I'm certainly not hauling it back to Tokyo with me the next time I'm there.
No.
Can you imagine bringing that to the airport?
Yes. Just anything to claim, sir? Yeah, just a couple of tubs of mac and cheese. 50 pounds.